everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers, presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the evening. Joining me today, it's a guy coming for my job. It is Philly's #1 hockey beat writer, Charlie O'Connor. Nice work yesterday, Chuck, filling in for me.
Bill, we're all glad that you're back, though.
I don't even know.
Very happy that you're back.
Eagles win the Super Bowl, and my immune system decides, no, you don't win the Super Bowl, though. But I am back here today, and we are on the eve of the Super Bowl parade that is tomorrow. It's going to be an all-day affair. It's going to be a ton of fun here in the city, but something got underway for the NHL last night, Charlie. It was the Four Nations face-off, the opening game, the opening ceremonies, all of that. And at the end of it, Canada nearly blows a pretty big... I mean, they did end up blowing the lead.
Yeah, they blew the lead.
They end up winning 4-3 in overtime over Sweden. Sidney Crosby, a 3-assist game. Remember when... Oh, he might not play. He's a little injured. Yeah, that was fun.
That was fun.
I got to tell you, after the first period, Chuck, I'm sitting there thinking, could this have just been a best of 7 between the U.S. and Canada? What's the point of this? And then Sweden comes back. They actually owned a lot of the game, at least from a shot perspective in the second half, and come back, force overtime. But that high-end Canada skill is unfreaking believable. We were just talking before we went live. I wonder if that first Canada power play, and it's their only one of the game, is like referees are going to be a little hesitant to call penalties because, yeah, man, we're giving Canada a goal. If that first power play unit gets out on the ice for Canada, it's freaking over. It was exactly what we expected right away. McDavid gets the puck down low to Crosby. Crosby with a spinning backhand to find MacKinnon. MacKinnon scores before the goalie can even reset. Just like that, 1-0. But I give a ton of credit to Sweden for holding on, coming back, and forcing overtime. And we're seeing already the 3-2-1 format come into play here, Charlie. Only 2 points for the win for Canada. Love to see it. What was your reaction to the game last night?
Well, you talk about the talent disparity, and it obviously showed up big time in the 3-on-3. But beyond that, I think you saw what are probably going to be the two big weaknesses of Canada in this tournament, which is Sweden, while not as talented, they are not. They're a talented team, don't get me wrong, but you look especially at their
Canada.
Well, you look especially at their forward core, and I'm going through like Victor Arvidsson, no chance he makes Team Canada. Jesper Bratt, maybe on the bubble. Leo Carlsson, no chance. Joel Eriksson Ek, no chance. Philip Forsberg, bubble guy. Kempe, no chance. Lindholm, no chance. Nylander, yeah, he makes it. Makes it. Nyquist, no chance. Pettersson, probably. Maybe. He's a bubble guy, but probably. Lucas Raymond, no. Rickard Rakell, no. Mika Zibanejad, no, not this year. So you look at the forward core, and it's like, yeah, Team Canada has the dramatic advantage, which popped up in the 3-on-3. But I thought Team Sweden played a much more team cohesive game. Plus, they have an obvious edge in goal. Philip Gustafsson was great.
Yeah.
Jordan Bennington was not.
No, and that's I think it was on Puck Soup this week or last week. Like, how many of these guys, and then you can get into the Finland roster, especially with their injuries.
Yeah.
Like, how many of these guys even get the invite to the camp?
Right.
Especially for Canada. Like,
right.
It's rough out there.
Yeah.
But you look at the Canada blue line. Yeah, they have Cale Makar, but after that, okay, they could be had. And you look at net, like, Jordan
obviously.
Bennington started for them. Yeah. Now, listen, they could have just taken Logan Thompson.
That's the thing, too. Like, they had better goals.
Yeah, they did. But even then, like, Logan Thompson, hell of a year, gets this contract. He's been dominant, but like, who you taking him over if you have the U.S. or Sweden's choices in net? Like, I don't know, none of them. So we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, I'm happy. Like, it didn't go the way it looked like it was going in the first period, and I am happy we get a look at this 3-2-1 format. You actually saw though because it's also we're getting the 10 minutes of 3-on-3 overtime, Charlie, which a lot of people are clamoring for, but Nathan MacKinnon had a little comment about it.
Yeah, that annoyed me. So after the game, the 3-on-3 overtime, it goes, I think, what, about like 7.5 minutes? It
Yeah.
went pretty deep in. Obviously longer than the overtime games in NHL games can go. They end at 5, then it goes to the shootout. And I think the general consensus online after the overtime was, that was amazing. Why don't we do that in the NHL? So, of course, Nathan MacKinnon has to be the party pooper and basically say, no, you shouldn't do this. I was exhausted. It was so draining. And the reason why that rubbed me the wrong way, number one, just because, like, dude, shut up. You know, everyone wants to be excited about this. Stop being like, no, we can't do that. But here's the other reason. Of course you were tired, dude. The Canada coaching staff threw the same 6 guys on the ice over and over again. It's an all-star team. You don't have to. I mean, I know why they did it. I get it. When you have Nathan MacKinnon, Connor McDavid, Cale Makar, when you have all these amazing players, yeah, you want to get them out as much as possible. But, like, it would have been very easy for them to throw their third liners out there for a bit rather than just continuously throw McDavid out there every other shift. Of course he's gassed. That was a coaching decision. That was not a flaw of the 3-on-3. That was a risk that the coaches take by just rolling with the same 6 guys over and over again. So, Nate, maybe think about that before you complain about being tired. That was your coach who screwed that up. Not screwed it up because they won the game, but, like, the reason why you're tired is not because it was a 10-minute 3-on-3. The reason why you were tired is because your coach used the same 6 guys over and over again.
And
he didn't have to do that.
Like, a lot of people are thinking maybe this is a little trial run here for what could happen in the NHL. Like, I am convinced they will never go to a 3-2-1 points format because a lot of GMs would lose their jobs quicker if it was obvious how far out their team is, rather than like, oh yeah, some games are worth 2, some are worth 3, and then, you know, we keep ourselves, like, look at the Islanders the last couple of years and how far out of it they would be versus the only the format the NHL uses. Like, but the 10-minute 3-on-3, every fan wants it. Even the NHL recognizes, like, yeah, like, shootouts are kind of BS when you just look at every way they decide playoff tiebreakers is like, what'd you do in regulation? What'd you do in regulation and overtime? Yeah, we're not even looking at wins yet. Like, what's your play? What's your goal difference? Like, they try to minimize the impact of shootouts as much as possible. So, like, I know we'll never eliminate it because we don't get rid of things in this league. But what if we could just go to a 8-minute, 10-minute 3-on-3? I think people are looking at this as maybe a little trial run. I believe they do it in the PWHL as well, and they do the 3-2-1 format there. So we'll see. But
yeah, I don't think
I don't think so.
It would be cool. I would like it. I've been advocating for it for a decade.
Yeah,
but I would be shocked.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to have games worth more points than others, Charlie, and it's random which ones are which, just depending on how we're feeling that day. Yep. But I think the motivation for MacKinnon, it's not to try to nix the 10-minute OT in the NHL someday soon.
Okay, what is it?
It's a built-in excuse. It's a built-in excuse. The 51st state is already the 51st state is already feeling the heat. They struggled with Sweden here. What happens when they run in to USA? What happens when they run in?
Well, watch, the U.S. is going to get killed tonight.
If the U.S. loses to Finland, forget politics. I'm renouncing my citizenship and moving to Canada. Maybe Finland. Like, this is Finland. You can't lose to this Finnish team, boys. Come on.
They are very clearly the weakest of the 4. Not even close. And they were even before the injuries.
They were before the injuries, and now it's like they don't have like 3 of their top 4 defensemen. Yeah. It's rough for Finland in this tournament, but that just means they'll win it. They're like 10-1, I think. So let's get our bets in over at Bet365. No, it's not time for an ad break yet, but it is time as we move from the 4 nations to some prospect talk. Let's get a Tankathon spin in here.
Okay.
That's right. It's Tankathon time. Flyers, of course, with the break, there is no change in the standings, but we just got to keep testing our luck here, see how many spins we can get in between now and the draft lottery. They are currently 6th from the bottom in lottery odds. Brenna, spin that wheel. All right, we go here, and it comes up.
Still sixth.
Yeah, all right. Remaining sixth is not the worst
was that?
possible.
Seattle jumped up to 1.
Seattle jumps. Okay.
I can't read the lettering. It's too low. So Seattle goes to number 1. Seattle gets Matthew Schaefer. Okay, noted.
All right. So that would be just. Do you think? Let's say it happens, Charlie. Say the Flyers end up winning the lottery. Do they take the defenseman?
It's a good question.
Do you think there's a possibility they trade down out of the spot?
It's a good question.
There are things that could happen.
There are things they could do. If I were them, I would try to trade down, and then if I can't trade down, if I can't get anything to move down to 2 or 3, ideally 2, then I would probably just take the center I think higher up, whether that's Michael Misa or James Higgins. But and I'm very early into my draft research. I think Matthew Schaefer is very good, but I don't watch him and see a guy where I'm just like, oh my God, you need to take him over the centers. He's so much head and shoulders better. And it seems like there is a growing scouting consensus that there is, which is weird to me given the fact that like he's been hurt for a month and a half. So it strikes me that like these are just scouts convincing themselves that this guy, who I think is going to be very good, but I am skeptical that it is the slam dunk. Like, it just seems like he almost got hurt at the perfect time. He had like 1.5 amazing games in the World Juniors, then got hurt and let everyone be able to sit on that for the next month of like, oh my God, look at how good he is, rather than the other guys they have more tape, so people are being able to pick them apart.
And we always know how that goes.
Like, to me, at least in my early viewings of these guys, and again, haven't gone crazy over it, I see a bunch of guys in kind of the same tier. And I'm kind of surprised that people are coalescing around a consensus that like Schaefer is so much better than everyone else. I wouldn't be locked into that. Now, if the Flyers scouts think Matthew Schaefer is going to be a number 1 defenseman and both Misa and Higgins are going to be number 2 centers at best, then yeah, take the defenseman, take best player available. But I personally don't think I see a big gap between him and the centers. So yeah, they probably need centers. And also, even setting aside organizational need, forwards are less likely to bust than defensemen. Even at the top of the draft, they are. They are sure things.
We do see, and I think that's why we see forwards go more often up there.
Yes.
Granted, like there's more of them, like that's just the way it goes. But that is interesting, and it does feel like this came out of nowhere. Like, granted, yeah, I start my draft prep in the trade deadline, but like it just feels as if all of a sudden we're hearing about, oh yeah, there's this defenseman. Actually, he's the number 1 pick, almost because they can't differentiate between the forwards. They're like, they're all kind of equal. So let's go with this guy.
I think too, it's that going into the season, the expectation was that James Higgins was going to be number 1. And while Higgins has not had a bad draft season, he hasn't had the oh my God, holy crap draft season that I think teams like a clear-cut number 1 pick to have in order to feel good about saying he's the clear-cut number 1. And the fact that he hasn't had that season, he didn't have that kind of World Juniors. He's been very good. Like, he is a clear-cut top 5, in my mind, top 3 pick, at the very least top 5. But he hasn't had that holy crap, Jack Eichel first year in college, Macklin Celebrini, same thing. He hasn't had that year. So because of that, people are looking for other guys. And Michael Misa, who was the other guy who's now being talked about in that realm, he's having an amazing scoring season in the OHL. But you watch him and he doesn't have the same flash that you expect from a number 1. He's just real good at everything. There was a time after the first month of the season that people were ready to say Porter Martone was going to be the number 1 overall pick. He was getting ranked number 1 by some guys. So I just think a lot of this is coming from the fact that Higgins hasn't had the holy crap year that people want him to have. And because of that, everybody's looking for a new guy. And Schaefer's the perfect new guy because he got off to a real good start, was really, really good in those couple games in World Juniors, and then got hurt. So now he's been able to just sit on that high. He hasn't had anything that's lowered his stock because he hasn't been playing.
All right. And now, before we move on to some prospect talk, it's time to take a little break, starting with TrueMark Financial. It feels like the holidays were so long ago, but maybe you've still got that credit card balance weighing you down. Well, think about this. What if you could pay it off faster and with zero interest until 2026? Well, with TrueMark Financial, you can, because right now TrueMark is offering zero interest on balance transfers for 12 months, so all your payments can go towards reducing your balance, not just covering interest. Here's what you got to do. Transfer your existing credit card balance from another institution to a TrueMark Financial Visa credit card and take advantage of this amazing offer. But hurry up. You only have till the end of February to do it. And whether you're interested in earning rewards, cash back, or simply prefer a low rate for everyday purchases, TrueMark Financial, with TrueMark Financial, you can choose the credit card that best fits your financial needs. Visit TrueMark.com/compare Visit TrueMark.com/compare for full details and apply today. TrueMark Financial, federally insured by the NCUA, equal opportunity lender. Terms and conditions apply. All loans subject to approval. 3% balance transfer fee applies. Standard rates apply after the promotional rate. And while we're here, why don't I tell you about the fine folks at Ace Hardware Home Services, because if you got a leaky pipe at Ace Hardware Home Services, they're around the block with everything you need to do the fixing, including a person to help you out on the project. Same thing with air conditioning issues, that leaky faucet you've had for months. Well, they have a person for that too, because Ace Hardware is not just the helpful hardware folks, they're also the helpful home service and repair folks. From plumbing to heating and cooling, they've got the trusted pros to keep your home humming all year long at Ace Hardware Home Services. We know it's been cold lately. You got to keep that heat running whether you want to or not. So you got to visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project today. All right, Charlie. You, the other day, put out your top 20 prospects list in conjunction with Alex Appleyard.
You got to give Alex credit, too.
I will always,
it wasn't just mine.
I will always give you credit, and Alex as well. You and Alex put out the top 20 prospects list, and this is different from some other things like we used to do, like the top 25, under 25. Like, this is just prospects. It's guys who haven't really made their way to the NHL yet, or at least full-timers. So, like Matvei Michkov, no longer number one. You discussed yesterday, he'd been number one since you started this, and now Jet Luchenko takes that top spot. And you discussed the list quite a bit yesterday. You got to Luchenko, you got to a couple of the goalies. I want to discuss a few guys a little lower on the list and see where we are with them. Guys I'm just kind of interested in. My first question is, in going through this, and I've been seeing this online a ton lately.
Oh, God. Are people complaining about something online?
No, just
I'm shocked. Shocking.
A concern people have with the Flyers prospect pool and some of the players.
Other than that it's bad? Because that's the other concern I say all the time. It's bad.
Some of the players that they've traded for, say, in the past 12 months, whether it's Jacob Peltier or Jamie Drysdale. Flyers have a little bit of a size problem. Do you believe that is a glaring issue with this group of prospects?
Okay, well,
like outside of the goalies, it doesn't seem like anyone's over 6'1".
Okay, well, number one, my personal bias is that no, I don't think it's a problem, and I think that's all completely overblown, and I think it's asinine. So let me just get that out of the way because I think it's something that is given way too much credence. I think you should go best player available, whether he's 5'9", whether he's 6'4", just get freaking talent. I don't care that Denver Barkey is small. If he's better than the guy, take him. And especially if you're drafting in the 3rd or 4th round when those guys slip just because they are small, take them because they are good and take the good players. However, I do acknowledge that Flyers fans want big players because they like guys who hit, and I get it. I do. And I do think that the Flyers could probably use a bit more size on the wing, particularly talking about guys who like legitimately play physical. I get it. I do get the frustration, but I just can't bring myself to give a crap. I just can't.
I also think like you do need size and physicality to win in the playoffs somewhere in your lineup. Mm-hmm. I also think a lot of people are still operating under the idea that the league is huge. The average NHLer is 6'1" and just under 200 pounds. Mm-hmm. Like the league has trended a lot smaller. Now, you don't have to be gigantic to play physical, and I think that's where a lot of people, like, given the average size, like, it's not as if you have to be 6'4" to play physical in this league. Like, you're not getting beaten up by too many Rasmus Ristolainens out there. That's what makes him so valuable.
Right.
Like, you can be a physical, smaller player, but a lot of this prospect pool does fall under the average size of an NHL.
I guess
now, weight-wise, like, 18-year-olds aren't the same size as but height, like, you're basically done. Some dudes do, but like, I finished growing in the 6th grade. I was this height when I was, 12 years old or whatever the hell you are in the 6th grade. Chances are not many of these prospects are going to have a huge growth spurt, but you can put on size and muscle through your 20s.
I guess here's my point. Look, in an ideal world, yes, you have a bunch of guys who are 6'4" and can skate like the wind and are super talented, because you'd rather have a 6'4" guy who's super talented than a 5'10" guy, because size does matter on the ice. You can do more things, but it's going to be impossible to create a perfect prospect pool. Like, for example, and I think this is kind of where I'm coming from. You just asked me, well, what happens if the Flyers win the lottery? They jump up to 1 or even 2, or whatever. They jump up. If they were to then, with that pick, take Porter Martone, the big physical Matthew Tkachuk guy who, is everything that fans say they want in a prospect. Everything they say that, well, the Flyers, they don't have enough size on the wing. They're not big enough. They're not tough enough. Would anyone be happy with that? No. Then everyone would be screaming, why didn't they take the center? He's a wing. That's so stupid. How could they be so dumb? So, like, they're never going to be happy. So why? I think that's been something I've realized over the last couple of weeks. Like, and it's allowed me to empathize a little bit more with Danny Briere. Like, don't pay attention to the fans even a little bit, because he traded away Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost, something that people online have been screaming about for months. And then within 2 days, everybody turned their attention to what else to be mad about. Like, don't worry about what the fans want, because if you give the fans what they want, then in 2 days they're going to want something else. Then in a week they're going to be like, well, trade Scott Lawton in 2 hours or else I'll be mad. Like, don't worry. Just, Danny, have your vision and follow through with your vision. Don't care about what anyone online says. Most of them do not have a clue what they're talking about.
And like, here's the thing. I am very stupid. Like, I don't know the answers. I will have ideas and we'll talk about them, and most of them would never work out. The old phrase, if you listen to the fans, you'll be sitting with them.
Yes, exactly.
Like, sometimes we're right.
I really do think that the response to the Farabee Frost deal was like a turning point for me, because you had people screaming that they needed to trade these guys, and that it was Danny can't close and he can't do anything, he won't do anything, and then he did something, and for like 6 hours, people were happy. And then it turned to, yeah, well, Michkov is only getting 12 minutes a night, so Danny and everybody's a moron, and fire Torts, and trade Scott Lawton. And if you don't trade Scott Lawton, then it's not a true rebuild. Like, people are always going to be mad. The only way they're not going to be mad is if you build a contender. So build a contender based on your vision, and then the fans will get on board once the team starts winning. Because in the end, all the fans want is the team to win. And until they win, they're going to find things to be mad at. So just build a winner. Build a winner.
All you have to do, the receipts are everywhere right now. Go back to September and read some tweets about the Eagles.
Yeah. Yeah. And then everyone was happy because they started winning.
And then they didn't lose for 3 months.
Yes.
And now everyone's happy because we're going to a parade tomorrow.
Just build a winner. Don't worry about the individual things that the fans want. Just build a winner.
Unless it's what I want. And then do that, Danny. No. What I want to do now is talk about some of the individuals on this list. And we're going to start with number 5 on the top 20 prospects. It's Denver Barkey. He's one of my favorite guys because, one, he's got a fun name. And two, he just looks like he's going to be a really fun player to watch. Like, he is that little ball of energy. Now, only 5'10", 157 he's listed at. I mean, 157, my God. Talk about, like, that's what I weighed in, like, the 4th grade, I think. He's back to scoring. It didn't have quite the start to the season that he did last year, and I think a lot of that goes to, like, he missed the whole preseason with mono, summer and everything. It wasn't on the ice for the Flyers at any of their camps prior to going back to the OHL. But you look at the scoring numbers, and it's hard not to look at this guy and think he's going to be a good NHL player. Is he going to live up to what he's produced with London? I doubt it. One, like London is an all-star team. Like they score a ton. There's a reason the Flyers look at them and like, that's who, if we could draft every one of their players, we would. Obviously, the relationship with
the Hunters,
with
Dale Hunter especially.
Yeah, the Hunters and all that. But like they are a premier organization in the Canadian Hockey League, you know, especially in the OHL. But it's hard to look at him and go, why wouldn't he continue to be at least a pretty damn good player? He did, however, fall in the rankings from 4 to 5. What goes in behind that, Chuck?
I think it's.
I mean, it's not like a huge drop.
No, I mean, I think it's less about Barkey and more about Zavragin, who was the guy we jumped up. So I don't really think that, like, I wouldn't say that it was because Barkey got worse as a prospect. He really didn't. And more or less what happened with him, if you really want to delve into, you know, his season and kind of everything like that, is he got mono at the end of the summer. And because he got mono at the end of the summer, his season started later than, not later in the sense of like missing time, but more later in the sense of he didn't start playing like Denver Barkey until probably around December. And I will get you the numbers. I don't have them offhand in terms of what his scoring has been like since he's kind of gotten healthy. Unfortunately for him, he didn't make the World Juniors team, which was a bummer for him. It was definitely a bummer for Barkey. I know
that was kind of the goal of this
wanted
season.
A lot. He really wanted to make the World Juniors team. Unfortunately, he does not. However, basically since he's gotten back to full strength, he's been the guy that we expected him to be this year. So it's less about him declining and more just about like, hey, Igor Zavragin's 19 years old and he's playing goal for one of the better, like one of the higher profile premier KHL teams as a teenager. Yeah, he's going to jump over Denver Barkey, who like no matter what he does is still going to be 5'9".
And I guess you do have to, in those tiebreaker scenarios, take size into account. Like if you have a good player, two good players, like you said earlier, and one of them is 6'4", sure.
Yeah,
you bump him up, but
100%.
You look at Barkey's production. I mean, 102 points last year, and then another 27 in the playoffs. Like 63 points in 41 games this year, and that's with the slow start and with mono coming out of camp and everything. Where do you think he factors into an NHL lineup? He's never going to be a big guy, like you said, but obviously NHL weight training program, all that. He can be better than 160 pounds, you would hope.
Sure.
Like, where does he eventually slot in? Because to me, it's higher offensive upside Scott Laughton.
I think you're underselling him a bit by pigeonholing him as because first of all, I don't think he's going to be a center at the NHL level.
No,
I think he's going to be a winger.
More of a winger, but like that energy guy who can play a bunch of different roles for you. You can move him around in the lineup, and he's going to score some. But is he going to score enough to be a top 6 winger? I question that.
If I had to guess, I would say like his ceiling is middle 6. His absolute ceiling is second line. But it's going to be tough because those types of guys with his size profile, are more likely to bust out. And he's not slow. He's a quick guy. He's got good edges. He's got burst, but he's not an elite skater. He's not going to be, like skating rings around everybody out there, especially not at the NHL level. The thing that really makes him an exciting prospect to me is just his relentless playing style. And I don't think that is going to disappear as he moves on the ladder. Now, is it going to get him hurt at the pro level? That's a concern. But I don't think he's going to stop being the like dog on a bone type player that he is at the junior level. And the cool thing about him is that he does that. He plays this relentless, always attacking, always buzzing kind of style, in addition to also having legitimate offensive ability. That's what's exciting. Now, he doesn't have a lot of comparables because most guys who are, this small don't make it. But I just have a hunch that Denver Barkey's going to find a way to make it.
He seems like that kind of guy, like a underdog type player. Like you've made the joke a bunch of times, like that dog has that Denver Barkey in him.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
He is that kind of guy who against the odds will, and the odds like I realized NHL is smaller. It's more about skill and speed than it's ever been. But it is still a really physical game. And the odds are against him, especially in a like scoring role, a top of the lineup sort of role. But he keeps producing. Like and I don't want to make the comparison because it's like, well, one of these guys did eventually bust out. But I always said about the what Strome did we have? Matt Strome. Right.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm going to continue to believe in him until the production ends.
Right. And then it eventually did. He got to the pro level and he stopped scoring.
Yeah, then he got here and it was like, okay, it's over. Like, I don't expect that to happen because, like, Denver Barkey, just a much higher thought of prospect. Like, we would do these lists and you'd be like, no, he's not going to make it. I'm not putting Strome on here. But it's just like that's sort of this mentality. I'm not betting against him. I'll tell you that because he just kind of keeps moving his way up and he finds his way into the top 5 of these lists every time.
And I'll give you the numbers. So this should speak to the impact of mono. So when I talked to Brent Flair in the interview that was published on ALLPHLY.com for diehard members only today, I asked him when did he think that Barkey started feeling like himself again post-mono, because that does have a serious impact on these guys. We saw it with Sean Couturier in his draft year. This is a thing. You have mono, you get wiped out, you have to put all that muscle back on and all that weight, and it takes a while for you to get back to where you were. So when I asked Flair that, he said December is when he really started turning the corner. You know, then he goes away for a week or so to juniors camp, doesn't make the team, but December is when Barkey started looking like himself. So looking at the numbers, looking at October and November, in 20 games, Barkey had 23 points, and even more eye-opening than that, only 3 goals. So 3 goals in his first 20 games in October and November. From December on to the present day, in 21 games, 40 points, 15 goals. So, like, this
little bit of a jump.
This 2-point-per-game guy that we've seen in December, this is probably the guy who we would have seen all season had he not gotten unlucky and gotten mono at the end of the summer.
And I'm just looking forward to one day getting to actually watch this dude, like in camp, healthy.
He's fun. He's a fun player to watch.
All reports are he's going to be a fan favorite type.
I just think that, and this is something I articulated yesterday with Kelly, the idea of, you know, for me, when I'm coming up with these lists, I want to make a distinction between the guys who I think can make an impact and the guys who are just role players, bottom of the lineup guys. And I said that I think that the line of demarcation in this list is around 10-11.
Yeah.
It's Alex Ciernik, it's Spencer Gill. Those are your last 2 guys where they're down that low because I think they have a smaller chance of getting to that point. But I do see enough there where I think they could. They could be guys where if they miss time, you're like, yeah, that hurts the team. That really does. It's not like, you know, like
plug and play someone else.
We all like Ryan Poehling. He's a good bottom sixer. I don't think anybody's saying that the reason why the Flyers are struggling right now is because Ryan Poehling got hurt. Like, I want him back. He's a good player, but he is what he is. He's not, his removal from the lineup isn't killing the Flyers. Whereas the guys from 1 to 10, 11 on this list are guys that, in theory, if they hit their plausible ceilings, could be guys that have that impact, that do make you say, man, the Flyers are a much worse team because they've been out of the lineup for 3 weeks. The reason why Denver Barkey I put in that category is because I just think, you know, for him, it's less about what he's going to be. You know, is he going to be a 3rd liner? Is he going to be a 2nd liner? Is he going to be a 4th liner? I just think he's going to make an impact. I think that if his game translates, and I'm not saying that I am like 100% certain that Denver Barkey is going to be an NHLer and be a really good NHLer, but if he hits his plausible ceiling, he is going to be a guy that when he is not in the lineup, you notice it. Like, whereas Jack Berglund, I don't dislike Jack Berglund as a prospect. He could be a perfectly fine 3C, but he's not a guy where, like, even if he hits what I think is his best case scenario ceiling, he's not going to be a guy where if he misses a month, I'm going to say, yeah, man, that's really killing the Flyers. Whereas Barkey, whether he's a 4th liner, a 3rd liner, or a 2nd liner, I think you are going to miss him. If he hits a ceiling, you are going to miss that guy when he's not playing for the Philadelphia Flyers.
All right, I want to actually want to go back up to 3 here and talk Oliver Bonk. Maintains his rank from last season, Barkey's teammate in the OHL with the London Knights, and I've just always been confused as to what kind of player he's actually going to be, because we see the scoring numbers with London, and it's
Been down a little bit this year, but he was never expected to be a high scorer. That was basically off the bumper thing.
They use him in the bumper, on the power play, and it's, well, that's, I mean, maybe, because who the hell else do the Flyers have? But you would hope that between now and the time he makes the NHL, they have someone who can play that spot. But, like, you have him at 3. It's kind of where he's been. They like him a lot. What ultimately is Oliver Bonk going to be, do you think? Just a nice second pair defenseman? Is he going to be one of these guys who, as you said with Barkey, regardless of what his actual role is, they're going to miss him when he's out? Like, what is Oliver
Well,
Bonk?
yeah, I do think that if he hits his ceiling, that they will miss him when he's out. I just have a lower view of what that ceiling is than I think the Flyers do. I look at Oliver Bonk and I see a second pair defenseman all day. I see a guy who is going to be a rock solid, minutes eating second pair defenseman. Think, and it's not a perfect comparison because obviously this guy was bigger. Think like Braden Coburn. That's kind of what I have in my head as to like the level of impact that I am expecting Oliver Bonk to have as an NHL player. Perfectly fine. And that's a guy who, you miss Braden Coburn when he wasn't in the lineup.
Absolutely.
But he also wasn't a first pair defenseman on a really good team. He was a number 3 or a number 4. That's what I think Bonk can be. The Flyers think he can be more than that. And there's a little bit of a disagreement there. Now, I think high enough of him that I ranked him as the 3rd best prospect in the organization. I just get the sense the Flyers see him and they see a guy where it's like, yeah, if in 5-6 years he's doing 24 minutes a night and drive and play and scoring 30, 35 points a year, that would not shock them. Whereas that would surprise me. I'm not expecting him to be that good. The Flyers think he can be that good, and time will tell who is correct.
All right. We've had a lot of Oliver Bonk discussion, and obviously there'll be more to come, but I'm just interested in some guys a little further down on the list, Charlie. Going to number 8, Alex Bump. From the Harvard of the Midwest.
The Harvard of the Midwest.
Western Michigan. And I feel like he had some highlights lately. He's been on a bit of a hot streak, and he's come into consciousness recently for Flyers fans. He got highlighted on a broadcast recently during a game. What can you tell me about the 2022 5th-round pick, Alex Bump? Like, where do you see him slotting in, and how far away from now?
The Flyers really like Alex Bump. This is a guy you need to keep your eye on, if for no other reason than he's going to get a look probably sooner than you think, because the Flyers think very high of him. And I've heard this from multiple people. I've heard this from third parties. Like, the Flyers really like this guy. And what I'll say about Alex Bump is this. I always cover development camps very closely. I've been doing this dating back to my time with Broad Street Hockey. It was one of the ways I sort of like gain credibility, I think, in the online sphere, was that no one covered development camp as detailed as I did. I would do videos, I would do long write-ups, I would evaluate the players, I'd basically play the role of scout for the fans that couldn't go. From the very first development camp that Alex Bump has been at, he has not looked like a 5th-round pick. From the very first one, you're like, this dude looks like a guy who was taken in the first 2 rounds. And the production at first, post-draft, didn't quite match the eye test at the development camp. But he was a guy who would show skills. He was making dangles. He was scoring goals. He was the kind of guy who you would get clips of him putting the puck between his legs on breakaways. That was Alex Bump. And you look at him, you're like, they got this guy in the 5th round? How did they do that? And then you look at his numbers in the USHL and be like, they're not that great. Maybe he's a practice guy. Well, last 2 seasons, he was basically point per game last year with Western Michigan. This year, he is past point per game. And I can tell you, he's a guy who passes the eye test. He has legitimate puck skills. I'm not talking about superstar puck skills. He's not on the michkov level, obviously. But when I asked Brent Flair what he thinks of Alex Bump, where he thinks he could fit, he said second-line wing. That's top 6 role. Now, I don't know if he's going to get there. But what I can tell you is the Flyers think that this is a guy who is a diamond in the rough. This is like the offense version of Noah Cates. Noah Cates, another 5th-round pick who they kind of found and they liked more than everybody else did. Also a guy who came out of the Minnesota high school prospect pool. So Brent Flair has been familiar with Bump for years, since Flair and Fletcher were very, very much attuned to that world. Alex Bump might play in NHL games at the end of the season.
That's what I wanted to get to here, because you have it in your write-up. Bump likely to join the Flyers once his sophomore season ends, and we're going to talk about your interview with Brent Flair, at least the first part of it, on tomorrow's show.
Right.
But spoiler, he kind of said that's a real possibility. Like, all the guys we're looking at who could maybe make that jump. I think we talked yesterday, or I wasn't here yesterday, so maybe 2 days ago, about like, oh, Luchenko, maybe he joins the Phantoms. We'll see how that goes. But Alex Bump, they think enough that this 5th-round pick from 2 years ago could be an orange and black in Philadelphia in March or April.
Yeah, that would be one of those things, just the explanation. Right now, he's still in college.
Yeah.
But the way these college signings work is that once their season is over, they sign a contract. And if the ELC starts this season, which they often do when you're signing these guys, they can jump in immediately. You know, we saw it with Noah Cates. That happened to him. He jumped in immediately.
Matt Reed.
Matt Reed
Joined the Phantoms, actually.
Yeah, he didn't play NHL games, but like Mike Testweed, if you're going to bring it all the way back, like this is a thing. But Noah Cates was a guy who jumped in. Wade Allison jumped in. You know, guys they signed. Ronnie Adert jumped in. Guys they sign out of college can jump in at the end of a season, especially when it's a season where team probably ain't going to make the playoffs. You know, maybe they're officially out of the playoff mix. That very well might be the case, given the way things seem to be trending with the Flyers this year. I'm just saying, with Alex Bump, if you're not familiar with him, familiarize yourself with him. They like him a lot. I don't know what he's going to be, but part of the battle in making the NHL is convincing your bosses you deserve to be in the NHL. And it seems like Bump has done a real good job of that so far.
And, man, it's going to be, come on. Bump, bump, bump. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's a good name.
Yeah.
They already have a lot of guys with the B
they have
first
the B,
name.
Yeah.
They got, obviously they already have Brink. They got Bonk and Barkey coming. Now you add Bump to it. I mean, there's a lot of potential here for some good merch opportunities.
There is. Let's take a look at number 10 on the list. Another Alex. This one, Ciernik.
Yeah.
4th-round pick in 2023. He was 11 last year. This year, you had him at 11. Alex had him at 10. He ends up at number 10 on the list. What can you tell me about Ciernik? That's the
Ciernik. Yeah,
Ciernik.
He's going to take time, and Flair was very clear about that he is going to take time. The thing with Ciernik, and I go back to development camps with him, he's a guy where he has the tools. You know, he can make moves with the puck. He's a really, really good skater, very agile, very fluid. He can fly. When they were doing the end of development camp scrimmage, and it was 5-on-5, you didn't notice him. You just didn't notice him. It was like, he's there. He's getting checked. He's getting rubbed off pucks. When he tries to do something, he doesn't really get anything done. Then they cut it to 4-on-4. You notice him a little bit more. You're like, oh, yeah, there's the speed. Yeah, he's popping a little bit. Then they cut it to 3-on-3, and he was the best player on the ice. So he is a guy where, like, the skill and the raw talent and the speed, it's there. He really needs to learn how to play in traffic and be able to get things done when there's less space. Because when the space is available, he can do stuff, and that's fun. But right now, at this stage of his career, even in development camps, he struggles to navigate. Struggles to navigate when the space is at a premium. That's only going to be tougher as he moves up the pro ladder. But the fact that he has the raw tools tells you there's something there. Now, I don't know if he's ever going to be able to put it together into a package that allows him to flourish and be a scorer at the NHL level. But I look at someone like him as having a better chance of being that kind of impact guy than a Jack Berglund, than a Heikki Ruohonen. Guys who, they might have a higher likelihood of being NHLers, but they're going to top out as third liners. The ceiling is lower. Ciernik might never even be a good AHLer, but if he hits, he could be a second line wing. And that's what's exciting about Ciernik. Like, he's more of a high risk or a high ceiling, low floor guy. And I am going to value those guys higher than the the mid-ceiling, high floor guy.
Especially considering, like, does this come into it for you? Obviously, we've talked for months about wanting the years at this point, wanting the Flyers to take some swings.
Yeah, he was a swing.
Does part of it come into you for, like, look at what they already have? Like, they have plenty of guys who are like, they got solid NHLers in this lineup right now. Project that forward. What do they need? Difference makers. Yeah. Well, he might not hit, but if he does, he's definitely going to be a difference maker.
I think that's part of why the size concern about the pipeline bothers me, because like they do have some big players. They have guys who are big. Like Jack Berglund is big. Like Ruohonen is big. They have some big dudes. It's just the big dudes they have are not guys that have high ceilings. The guys who have the high ceilings are the guys who are smaller, because the only way you can draft those guys not in the first 15 picks
they fall
is because they're smaller.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to get a high skill guy past the top 15 picks, it's probably because he's smaller. That's how you get them. Denver Barkey was a 3rd round pick. Alex Ciernik is a 4th round pick. Like the only way you're going to get a 6'4" behemoth who also can skate and has skills that could project him as a top 6 forward is the pick in the top 15 picks. That's the only way you're going to find him. Like Owen Tippett, Porter Martone, like those guys go early because they're so rare. There are a lot of big guys you can draft. You can do what the Rangers do. And basically after round 3, they just take the biggest dude they can find. And they're like, well, we'll try to mold you into something. And they end up with Matt Rempes. The Flyers are looking at it more from my perspective, which is, well, once you get past the 3rd round, let's take some big swings. And for me, a big swing isn't take the 6'7" guy. A big swing is take the 5'9" guy who only slipped because he's 5'9" and he has all the other tools. I think that's why the size concern rubs me the wrong way, because, like, look, I would love it if they took a bunch of Matt-Tkachuks. Problem is, the only way you're getting a Matt-Tkachuk is if you're picking 5th overall, because Matt-Tkachuks are gone by pick 18 because everybody wants the guys who are big and can score and can skate. They don't last long, even if they have other flaws, because they're unicorns. Everybody wants them.
All right, before we go any further, I got to tell you about our friends at Rothman Orthopedics. Are your joints aching? Are your hands cramping? Is your back out of whack? Well, if that's the case, Rothman's got you. At Rothman Orthopedics, they've been practicing specialized care, and it has been their passion for over 50 years because their mission, it's high-quality, compassionate, and affordable care rooted in research leading to new treatments and better outcomes. And each Rothman doc is laser-focused on their specialty: hip, knee, spine, you name it. They have a team for each body part right in your backyard so you can get back to your specialty because they're Rothman Orthopedics, and they specialize in orthopedics. And you visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and make an appointment today. And while we're here, it's time to talk about Bet365. That's right, Bet365 is where you got to be placing all of your Four Nations face-off action. It's the sportsbook of my choice. I've been using it all season long. And listen, maybe you wanted to bet Canada last night. They open up a 3-goal lead, and you're thinking, okay, here we go. And they blow it. Well, guess what? You would have got paid right away if you had bet at Bet365. Actually, no, it was a 3-1 lead. It was not 3-0. But let's just say it was 3-0 for the point of this advertisement. You would have got paid right away, and then you don't even have to sweat out overtime. That's the great part of early payouts at Bet365. One of the many features that make it my sportsbook of choice. And right now, we have breaking news from Bet365. New customers now get $100 in bonus bets when you had bet just $5, win or lose. All you have to do, sign up, use the code PHLY365 when you do, then deposit $10, then place a bet for $5 to get $100 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, Chuck, this is a guy I'm very interested in because Cole Knuble comes in at number 13.
He does.
He was 18 last year, 18th on your list.
He's moving on up.
I have asked you a couple of times when Cole Knuble has come up, if his last name wasn't Knuble, is he even in the Flyers prospect pool? And we've kind of been like, maybe not. Well, Joke's on us. At least me. Knuble is like Notre Dame's go-to guy. And right now he's in the Hobie Baker conversation.
He is, yeah.
Like he's one of the fan vote finalists
a very
for
good year.
the Hobie Baker. 28 points in 24 games. He was a 4th round pick a couple of years ago. Is Cole Knuble kind of working his way into this? I know you have him at 13 and you said your difference maker slot is kind of 10 or 11. Could you see him working his way up even further?
See, now here's a guy. You made the point. You're like, well, I could see Denver Barkey as the next Scott Lawton. Here's a guy I could see as the next Scott Lawton.
Okay.
This is more my view of like, okay, Cole Knuble, I watch him and I do not see a guy who has enough of a dynamic element to play in your top 6. But I see a guy who could be a darn good bottom 6er. That's my view of Cole Knuble. And going back to something that you said about our past conversations about is Cole Knuble in this pipeline if his name is not Knuble? I think the answer is no, but I want to reassess why.
Okay.
Because here's one thing that the Keith Jones run organization, and I'm not saying this is a slight against Danny Brewer, I'm just saying that I suspect this is more of a Keith Jones thing than a Danny thing. This is something that they have pivoted towards, and it's been very notable over the last 2 seasons in terms of who they draft. Actually, you know what? Before I get to that, I want to let's turn the clock back about 7-8 years. During the Ron Hextall era, when we do our post-mortem of why it failed, what is something that we bring up as a major reason in retrospect why it failed? Player development. We're like, they had these great prospect pools.
There's no way they missed on all of them.
They were ranked in the top 5. There's no way they missed on everybody. There has to be a player development problem. And I think the Flyers very much agree. And the Flyers obviously have beefed up their player development staff. They've hired more people. It's more all over the world even. They have like Ken Hudikoff. They have the guy they hired to help with Russia. They have Finnish scouts now. They have, Sam Moran. They have their army of former Flyers that just go around North America visiting people. They've beefed that up. But I think they believe it goes beyond beefing up the player development staff. That's part of it, but it goes beyond that. It also comes down to drafting players in situations from a junior standpoint, from a, national team standpoint, whatever, where number one, it's in programs that they believe have a track record of sending a lot of players to the NHL and developing them in a way that prepares them for the NHL. And number two, this is important as well, players that either play for teams or have personal connections that allow the Flyers to have more control over their development.
Interesting.
So, class example, Denver Barkey, Oliver Bonk, both from London. Now, London, obviously, premier program, but also Keith Jones has a long-standing relationship with Dale Hunter. They were former teammates. They're best buds. So, Jonesy has the ability to get on the phone whenever he wants and talk to Hunter. Be like, hey, how are our guys doing? What can we do to make sure they're doing better? The line of communication is much more open. It's a long-standing relationship. You have Spencer Gill, plays for Rimouski. They have that connection with Sam Moran, also a former Rimouski player,
Right.
which allows them to have that direct in. Like the guy who coaches the defense, Sam Moran, is known for decade plus. They have that connection. The fact that Cole Knuble is Mike Knuble's son, like, yes, you can talk about it being nepotism and, oh, it's a former Flyer thing. That maybe is part of it. But also, Mike Knuble's in the family.
Yeah.
If they want to be able to have a stronger hand in terms of his development and in terms of when he's going to go pro and the decisions he makes, having Mike Knuble on your side, having his dad on your side, that can help. I think that has been a low-key big part of their, not like we're only going to take guys like that, but I think it's a tiebreaker. I think they are looking at it as the more input and control that we can have over these guys' development processes before they even get to us, the better. And maybe then we can avoid the issues that ruined, at least in part, ruined the Ron Hextall rebuilding plan.
And even just, I doubt that Dale Hunter or his brother would allow a potential Flyers prospect to be like, Yeah, I'm never talking to them. Don't let them in the building.
Exactly.
Like, I don't think that would be allowed to go on. There would at least be like
It's a really good point.
Hey, kid, this isn't how you handle it.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if you have no intention, you go and you have the conversation. And then at the end of it, if you want to tell them to F off, you can. Go have the conversation.
I don't think Mike Knuble is going to let Cole Knuble snub John LeClaire. I don't think that is going to be allowed.
Just listen, I get that we can't operate in fear of the Gauthier situation, but it is something you need to account for a little bit more. And
if you don't learn from your mistakes, then what was the point?
It's kind of that whole thing. You're a history major. You know that whole thing.
Yeah.
That's what you did, right? History?
I did do history, yeah. I was a history major. Good pull there.
It's very funny
Respect.
to me. I was a journalism major, and you're the journalist.
That is funny, actually.
All right, we only have a few minutes left. We can honestly get to this trade stuff on tomorrow's show. So let me see if there's one more. Alexis Gendron. That's a dude I'm very, very interested in.
Snuck onto the list at number 20.
Comes in at number 20 and having a decent year with the Phantoms. I thought he was pretty good at the rookie games we saw him at up in Lehigh Valley. What gets him on this list over some of the honorable mentions? Like J.R. Avon, Rizzo, Sampson, some other guys whose names we know.
I think it's probably, like, I ranked him 21. Alex ranked him 21. So he's very much on the edge.
Yeah.
He's got plus skating ability. And he's shown an ability this season to turn that into offense. Like, that's probably what puts him above Avon, because Avon is also a really good skater. But Gendron has shown more of a scoring ability at the AHL level. Now, I don't think Gendron is ever going to be a top 6 forward. Might not even be a third liner if he makes it. I'm more looking at him as a like Darryl Powell type, a guy who is real fast and can chip in with some offense here and there. And so far, he's developing in a way that makes you think maybe. I'm not super into Alexis Gendron. Some people are. I know he has fans in the Flyers blogosphere who think he can be more than what I do. But I'm looking at a guy who has one legitimate plus tool in his skating ability, straight line skating ability. He can fly. He's a burner. And he's showing, at least at a relatively young age, that the puck skills, the scoring ability can at least translate a bit. And look, if you want to be a fourth liner, obviously you're not going to be expected to score a ton, but you got to score a bit. You got to have some skills. And he's showing that some of those skills are translating. It at least makes him intriguing to me as a potential bottom sixer down the road. Especially like when you look at his size, not a guy who's going to be Garnet Hathaway. Exactly. Like, so you do need to put up a few points. You need something that keeps you in a lineup regularly. All right. Time for the super chats. We had a few today. First one here from Gary B. Hope you're feeling better, Bill. Let's effing go Flyers. Oh, I am worlds better than yesterday. Bought all the drugs at Walgreens. Could not you also possibly got a lot of sleep. Yeah, I also slept like most of yesterday. Like I was a ghost in my house. We were texting back and forth, and there would be like three-hour gaps where Bill would not respond. He'd be like, "Oh, I just woke up. Sorry. Yeah, that's fine. I just re-woke up for the third time. Yeah, so I am feeling. Thank you, Gary. From JH says Charlie O'Ad reads usurped after one day. Shame. I am happy to be usurped. I cannot possibly allow Charlie to do the ads because then what is my role here? All right, and then another one here from JH. He says, "Here's your penny." Yes, Charlie O'Thrifty. Yes. Did you watch the show? I listened to it this morning, and I was like, "Charlie, what are you doing calling our super chatters cheapskate?" You know what? Sometimes you just need to give it back a little bit. That's good. It was weird because everyone was giving $2, and then he gives $1.99. It was just like a little odd. Where was that extra penny? Thanks, JH. Thanks for the extra penny. We're good now. We're good. Hockey Dentist 28 coming in with a big $9.99. Thoughts on Kolosov not being sent down to the AHL with the rest of the group? Seems like he's missing out on playing time for sure. Great to have a 4 p.m. show with the dynamic duo again. Yes, and you'll have another one tomorrow for your viewing pleasure. So I guess I just wasn't paying attention when they sent everyone else down. It wasn't Kolosov, huh? Look, everybody knows why. This isn't. That's kind of now. Like, this isn't tough to understand. It's because everyone knows that Kolosov does not want to spend that much time in the AHL, and it's something that they're willing to accept as part of the cost of doing business with Kolosov because they believe in his plausible upside as a player. Is it a little unfair? Yeah, probably. Like, he's getting paid more money than Emil Andre, who has to go and play, for significantly less money on a daily basis for these 2 weeks because they can save some cap. And with Kolosov, they're not willing to do it because they know that him and his people won't necessarily love him being down in the AHL. Is it fair? No, it's really not. But it's just the reality of the situation.
I just want to say we appreciate those of you watching on TV. Head over to allphly.com for more of the show. And yeah, that's I kind of thought they had it figured now where, well, listen, kid, we'll send you down when we're not playing because there's no NHL for you to be missing. You can play, and then we'll bring you back up when the Four Nations is over and things like that.
And they didn't.
And that's not the case. And that's a little concerning for a guy with a save percentage in like the 870s in the AHL.
What it boils down to is the reality is that they are bending over backwards a little bit for this guy. They are. And if that rubs you the wrong way, you know what? Fair. But they believe he's worth it, and we'll find out.
I guess we will see about that. But for today, that is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers, presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Yeah, that's it for us. Listen, between now and the next show, it's parade time. Everybody enjoy yourself.
Be safe.
This is one of those rare moments we get to revel in being Philadelphia fans. Yep. Absolutely. Don't make total fools of us.
Be safe. Bring a lot of water because you're going to be in that spot probably for a really long time if you're going out there. So bring a lot of water. Got to stay hydrated. We don't want to see people, collapsing because they took a bunch of shots on the way to the parade and then have no water for 5 hours. So stay hydrated.
Charlie talking to me through everyone else. That's it. Make sure you're following us here on YouTube. Hit that reminder bell so you never miss a live show. Follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers. Follow the podcast as well, wherever you get those. Just search PHLY Flyers. I am Bill Matz. That's Charlie O'Connor. Until tomorrow, let's go Flyers.
We all silly like the mayor.